Ladies and gentlemen, welcoming you all to International Affairs being broadcasted from the SATV's Gulshan studio. My name is Shamsul Panto with the latest details. We shall be dissecting and understanding the worldwide news outlets, how they are responding to the global events that shape today and tomorrow's future. But before we step into the discussion, let me introduce my panel. Here in the studio, I have Associate Professor Rashid Alam Bhuiya, hailing from Dhaka University in the Political Science Department. I welcome you on to the program. Alongside, I will have Norman Floyd Barnes joining us from Washington, D.C. as our geopolitical correspondent. I want to begin today's discussion with Norman Floyd Barnes. A very good morning to you, sir. From what I make, that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is in Washington, D.C. and has arrived. We know that this would be the 7th time that he has visited Washington, D.C. This time around, he is there to discuss various issues pertaining to Lebanon, to Iran, and the warlike situation that we've been seeing for the many weeks we have been analyzing these newses. I want to ask you, Norman, how are you seeing this? Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine is also there, I believe, to attend for the Senator Lindsey Graham's funeral is going to be the optics for today and the rest of the days of this week. I want to ask you, what are some of the other updates you have? How are you seeing the geopolitical arena, Norman?
Greetings today from Washington, D.C. Yes, we have a combination of world leaders here for Lindsey Graham's service, memorial service. But you can bet that they are here talking more about the Middle East and how they're going to deal with that. There's a lot of, say, confusion, but a lot of impatience right now because things are not moving as swiftly and also as focused as supposedly a plan. The Israeli Prime Minister is meeting with the president today, and they're going to talk about Lebanon. They're going to talk about Iran. They're going to talk about the behavior and characteristics of this war and how Israel can reposition itself to move forward with their campaign, and at the same time create a situation where the United States can find a honorable exit from this region. But things are changing. I'm hearing that the Houthis are now looking for a similar type of toll gate situation in the Red Sea. At the same time, there's talk about Oman is talking about a plan where they can have a joint Gulf state provide a voluntary toll for the region to de-escalate the issues there. But you can rest assured that they are having conversations. They are having back channel conversations, and some of these back channel conversations may be more fruitful and more productive than what we are seeing right now. Because right now, the United States has put themselves in a position where the bombing or the scheduled bombings has not been as effective as of a deterrent from Iran attacking the Gulf states. So right now we do not see a military solution for the issue. It's back to the tables again for a diplomatic compromise where everybody can comfortably coexist. I do not know if this is going to work because the issues at the table are, for the most part, non-negotiable. Iran is not going to give up its nuclear ambitions. They're not going to give up the Strait. They are not going to give up their sovereignty. And the other countries in that region is now seeing the effect of the control of the Strait has on the world economy. So these things are not going to be handed over to, as they say, foreigners. The issues are going to have to be addressed by the Gulf states. They're going to have to figure out a way how they are comfortable and they can comfortably coexist in the region without shooting missiles, rockets, and killing each other. But the issues now with Ukraine is creeping into the conversations, and I'm pretty sure the prime minister from Israel is going to be talking about this and what strategies that the United States and them can utilize to basically stabilize the region. However, there's again the tactics of Israel is going to be addressed, and they are horrible to the point where war crimes are now resurfacing, and the United States is very impatient. I'm saying the United States president is very impatient with how this is affecting the overall stability, the economic stability of the region. It has basically mushroomed to a point where basically this region has affected how the world is going to turn, the next turn of the world, how things are moving. Because of the unanticipated Iranian response, and now the Houthis response, there is going to have to be some major conversations and concessions made in order to get the world back into a positive mode. Right now is a negative. Right now, everything is dependent on that energy-rich region and the control of the maritime areas. That is appear to be the problems and the needs of the region, and the rest of the world is now being questioned because you have this region with Iran, Hamas, and other factions are now seeing where they can basically change the narrative. And again, it comes back to the Gulf states. They have to resolve this. It cannot be resolved by the United States and external factors, Europe and whatever. They can intercede, they can influence, and they can have impact. But overall, the people, the countries living there has to work out a way to comfortably coexist. If not, the world is not going to be able to be very successful in its endeavors. So it has to come from that area, not externally.
Right. Excellent remarks by Norman Floyd Barnes, especially recapping some of the latest events that we see from around the world. Iran in a very peculiar position as one of its commercial ships has been attacked, targeted by a drone spanning from Ukraine. Even the charge d'affaires was called upon, and Iran has explicitly claimed that it has the right to respond. Turning to the studio with Professor Rashid Alambuya, there's a lot on the table to discuss today.
Right.
I also want to add on here that no nation has been a question to fight a multi-frontal war of this time around. Of course, Iran is not alone. It has the Houthis as well as the Hezbollah in Lebanon. So there seems to be an ambiguous time. Everyone is gathering for the funeral of the late Senator Graham, who was seen as an avid supporter of Israel. On the other side, the U.S. will be leading the talks between Israel and Lebanon to be held next week in Rome. So apart from it becoming a vacation for the negotiators to travel around the world, there is real life implications even in Lebanon. So wanting to ask you, the world is moving in a direction that people would definitely say it is uncertain how the next 5 months will roll out. How are you analyzing these issues?
Like, we are, actually experiencing an unparalleled level of violence, war in the world scale at the moment. In Iran, U.S. situation is completely like we found some negotiation, round up table of negotiation, then war, then again negotiation, then again war. So this is a cycle that started in February 2026, and we are now heading to August. So I think this is really unprecedented scales of violence and war the world is experiencing. As my colleagues also mentioned, that it is a huge catastrophic impact on the social and economic life of the U.S. citizen and also global citizen as a whole because of the rising prices of oil and other things. But I want to think one thing I'd like to mention, like the violation of ceasefire agreement. What actually making this conflict a stagnant situation at the moment? When Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding was signed in 17th of June Trump on his own pen, he signed that document. And in that document, if you read the Article 5 of that Memorandum of Understanding, it is said that the operation of the Hormuz corridor, it will be coastal rights of the Iranian state, coastal states. So Iran will actually clear the mine, and they will found an operational channel in the Hormuz channel, and USA agreed upon it. But later on, I don't know who played this muddling of water. USA actually revoked that agreement. I mean the Article 5, where USA again said it's an international waterway, Iran has no rights on it. Then why you signed it on 17th of June? You said Iran will manage the operation, and even Trump stated in a media, me and Ayatollah will operate the Hormuz channel. He said unilaterally, cooperatively they will do that. But later on, USA tried to, when Iran attempting that demining of the Hormuz channel, and the USA unilaterally initiated a rival southern corridor across the Hormuz, and they bypassed the original route, and that then when the conflict again started. So if you do this kind of peace deal, you reach on an agreement and then you violate it, then there is no hope for peace. If you want to really believe in peacemaking, you have to maintain what you stated in your peace deal agreement, what you already agreed upon. You have to follow that. Otherwise, we will see this war will continue this cycle, stagnation, and I think Iran has shown utmost resilience, even though mighty power USA tried every way to disseminate Iran and dismantle Iranian regimes. But I can see that Iran has shown utmost resilience. As you said, they can successfully involve the Houthis, and then Hezbollah in Lebanon, the axis of resistance, what you said, even and against the Israel and US, the war that has imposed upon Iran. So as an analyst, I do not give any blame on Iran, because they didn't start this war. It is started by USA, and US is punishing its own citizens and also global citizens by continuously flouting the ceasefire agreement and continues this war without any. I don't think USA have achieved any major interest through this war. All the bases of what the Middle East has gone. Iran successfully attacked in the last couple of days. They destroyed Kuwait base, they destroyed Jordan base. So USA has achieved nothing in this war. And even the US citizen is talking about that. So it's totally against US interest, US citizen interest. So I don't know, US imperialism, US hegemony has been in a huge question. Even they could not defeat Iran, how they going to fight against China in the next if that development took place. So US is downing.
Of course, excellent remarks by Associate Professor Rashid Alam Bhuiya. We really need to look at what are the winnings, if not the takeaways, of initiating themselves in this war. What we see is Iran is now being seen as the regional hegemon. It is fighting off Israel, it is fighting various other regional partners as well as the US, and that is what I want to ask Norman Floyd Barnes. You see, when the leader of a group sets an example, everyone else is to follow. But when it came to the Strait of Hormuz, especially the blockade, Iran has their own naval blockade, and then the US set up its own naval blockade. So there has been contested waters. However, when we look at trading routes, it is very important to understand how it affects other straits in the world as well. We see the Houthi giving a ban and a blockade of trade between Saudi Arabia in the Red Sea, in the Bab el-Mandeb. As well, I must also bring into the discussion, majority of Chinese trade follows through the Malacca, the Strait of Malacca, situated in the waterways of Malaysia, Singapore, and that corridor remains to be the most important trade route for China to deal and trade with the rest of the economies around the world. If there was to be a contest in those waters, we can definitely have an economic mayhem. So this is what I want to ask Norman. As Professor Rashid Alam Bhuiya was stating, that the US and its decision making has affected the citizens of the world, including those inside America. $5.90 for oil seems to be rising as the day progresses, as the weeks progresses towards the end of the year. I want to ask you, sir, what are some of your predictions in the coming days to follow? We have seen 15 days of continuous hostilities, and US President Donald Trump stating that they remain in deep talks with Tehran. However, he will restart military operations if negotiations stall. That almost sounds like a blackmailing if you do not follow by the rules of U.S.
And
President
repetition
Donald
of
Trump.
earlier statement.
Exactly. So I want to ask you, Norman, how do you see these statements, the realities that we are now having to live by?
Well, the what we're talking about right now, you mentioned it, is the conditional conversations. When you are talking about negotiations, anytime you bring up a negative, a double negative, I would do this if only you will follow these rules. The same thing about the United States when they discussing with Saudi Arabia about the nuclear enrichment. Uh, I would do this only if you agree to rejoin the Abraham Accords. So these conditional conversations, these conditional agreements, has no water. It has no weight. People, the world is now getting fed up on these conditions. It gives the appearance that you are the controlling party in the room, and you are dictating how. It's almost like a surrender. It's how you're going to dictate terms on how we're going to move forward. Uh, I think we passed that time. Right now, everybody believes that they have a equal footing, mainly because of the situation in the Strait. The United States world power went into the area, blockading, telling Iran exactly what they're going to do. As a result, Iran responded with their supposed defeated navy, their ships with small PT boats, and they have effectively controlled the region with the psychological impact. That is something we're looking at. The what if, not what happened, what I can do or what I've done. We have bombed, but we have not controlled anything. The United States has bombed the region. We have used a lot of ammunition to pound Iran, but Iran is still resurfacing and they're still doing countermeasures, counter responses to everything the United States has done. So that issue is not working. It's like, if I punch you, you punch me back. You punch me, I punch you back. So what do we have? We're punching each other, but nobody is conceding and nobody is gaining ground. And it's just a mess, a ball of confusion. And the rest of the world is supposed to sit around while you're punching each other. And we're supposed to live our life when Brent crude price is going to go up, the cost of food is going up because of fertilizers, and the lack of economic income coming in. So people are not making money. Countries are not making money. They're not trading. They're not producing. Everything is almost like a state of, I'm going to call it virtual constipation. You are not moving. The flow is not moving. So basically, when you don't have the flow moving, just like your body, you get sick. You get congested. You things happen, and other things result of that. So what you seeing and what I predicted in this with this state of constipation, there will be reactions that come out of that.
Right.
Uh, Things that are not going to work well. Things, other action, other activities, and people are going to see, hey, if they can do this now, maybe we can do something in the South China Sea. That is not a good prescription because that is not going to be a very good look for the rest of the world. China is not going to tolerate it, and the rest of the world is going to respond. So everybody in a state of siege. If you do this, I'm going to do that. So basically, right now we are confused, very confused because of this inability for this situation in the Gulf states, and also with Israel and Lebanon. And I'm going back to Palestine. None of these issues has been resolved this year. Nothing has moved forward. We are in this state, as I say, of constipation, to put it crudely, and things are getting worse. Things are getting affected. Other things have happened, and now we got Mother Nature. As we know, the heat is causing problems.
Right.
It's gonna continue to cause problems. We got more hurricanes coming up. Things are happening on the surface, Earth, Mother Nature's things are happening, and we are focusing on our little menial human issues because we can't communicate and resolve issues. We rather fight throw rockets, missiles, drones at each other and blow up things instead of figuring out the big issue. The issue is that we need to find a way, mankind, to coexist and get rid of this petty land grabbing control situation. You're not going to control it. Particularly geographical areas, you're not going to have a control. You're going to have problems with that. If one party go in and seize control of it, the other party is going to have countermeasures. It's going to happen. It's never going to end that way. So I believe mankind need to figure out exactly what they want to do. You're not going to be able to control. One party is not going to be able to control the situation. There'll be conditions or movements or whatever, but until we get to the conversation, war is just a breakdown in communication. So right now we have a failure of communications. So that's what we're seeing right now. So as long as this failure of communications continue, we're going to have this constipation period, and basically that is not going to be. They're going to make everybody sick, maybe war, and we move into a point of war where we can't return. And once that happens, once the cat out the bag, and once this global conflict started, we're going to figure out and say, hey, how do we get into this? Well, we in it. We can't get out of it. And it's all because we have not been able to, at the surface level, sit down and communicate on how we're going to do this thing. Greed and profit are very sick instruments, and we are sick. The world is sick, it's getting sick, and it's getting more infected until we figure out how we're going to deal with this instead of a few greedy people trying to maintain and control everything.
Excellent remarks by Norman Floyd Barnes, actually summing up the greed of some people that are often seen in the positions of decision making from around the globe. It's time to take a short commercial break. Afterwards, we will be analyzing how China has been living through ever since the start of this war. Ever since that date, China has stopped exporting or importing in crude oil, and that has a significant impact regarding the oil markets of the world. More discussions to follow. Do stay tuned for more on this very program.
With President Xi of China and President Lee of South Korea.
Trump's White House that is in favor of these things.
Simply not enough action being taken to address the problem of fossil fuels.
What their plan initially is towards the Caribbean, a place that has been met with two types of disasters.
Bangladeshi students at the same level of opportunity internationally and domestically.
International Affairs. Watch every Sunday to Thursday at 2 p.m. only on SATV and SATV Digital. Hello and welcome to International Affairs, and my name is Shamsul Panto.
I don't see an easy resolution to this because every slight deviation from the plan,
opening an open war conflict with them,
testing nuclear missiles,
Russia's announcement of these supposedly successful testing,
special and exclusive footage that is being played on SATV's screen,
Really coming to terms with Hamas.
Damage estimated between this entire issue.
President Trump is expected to hold bilateral talks.
preserving biodiversity and tackling climate change.
We cannot protect the planet before we negotiate peace.
Where is it going? Is it understanding the needs of its people before the needs of this global world?
For China to come to agreement,
They will face better projects.
With President Xi of China and President Lee of South Korea.
Trump's White House that is in favor of these things.
simply not enough action being taken to address the problem of fossil fuels.
What their plan initially is towards the Caribbean, a place that has been met with two types of disasters.
Bangladeshi students at the same level of opportunity internationally and domestically.
International Affairs. Welcoming our viewers back on to International Affairs. We are joined in the studio with Associate Professor Rashid Alam Bhuiya as well as Norman Floyd Barnes from Washington, District of Columbia. I want to turn to the studio with Professor Rashid. We see that China has been playing a very important role in order to keep the global oil markets at bay. What happens is, here's the conversation. The entire world has been dealing crude purchases in the dollar, the currency of the United States, and hence the petrodollar. However, when we see that Russia and its oil have been sanctioned because of a war with Ukraine,
Right.
on the other side we see that the Iranians cannot no longer be selling their oil from their region because of sanctions and other
right, yeah.
mechanisms. But it has been finding a way across towards China through its dark fleet, as the news media calls it. And it has been stabilizing Chinese localized need for crude oil, and really no one knows how much reserves does China have. It's very secret as it's kept away. Communist nation headed by Xi Jinping. We've seen Donald Trump coming, and that was the geopolitical highlight of several days in June and in May. But really, China's doing its level best to keep the global oil markets going. And then appears the Chinese currency, the yuan. So now that is being used to trade those sanctioned oils and whatnot. So I want to ask you, the Chinese role in this kind of war. Of course, it's not just satellite data that has been relayed to Iran. It is now taking a shape of a proxy war as various nations are backing one another.
Right.
So I want to ask you, the global oil issue, in the 15 days, it has jumped all the way between the mid-60s all the way to $100. So I want to ask you how you see China's role.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, you pointed out correctly, like before this war started, China predicted that something is coming, and I have seen in a report that China actually increased their import before the war started. And the month before the war started, particularly December and January, they have increased their oil import nearly 14%. So that's how they have a huge strategic reserve within the China, and that's enough for, I think, although the stats say that they can easily run the Chinese economy at least for 6 months, but I can understand it with more than 6 months. They have actually that strategic reserve, and because of their, China have a completely different economic philosophy. They have a mixture of centralized control economy and also capitalism or mixed economy. So that's how they can control the global market, and they can control. So it's not only the capitalism they work there, but they also, as a country, as a government level, they also have control, overall control in the economy. And that's why they have planning, they have a design, and they have a strategic advantages of every kind of conflict, every kind of catastrophe that world is we're seeing, and it's not only there. And you said the yuan. So Iran also agreed upon at the initial phase of the war, if any ships, any vessels are willing to purchase the crude oil in yuan, they will have exemption in the Hormuz Channel. So that's how Iran also. Their strategic partnership with the China, as you said, it's very much turned into a proxy war, and Iran has getting different way the support from although China, correctly, the China negate that. China said we are not supporting Iran in any form, but we can understand there is a huge proxy war is going on behind the curtain, and Iran is receiving all forms of technological support from China in this war, and also Iran also giving the Chinese currency yuan as a world strategic position. Like if any ships or any vessels want to purchase the oil in yuan, we will be happy to give them a safe passages. So that's tell us the story, what happening, what kind of thing and negotiation and partnership and cooperation and friendship among the countries are going on inside behind the curtain and behind what we see appearing in the world stage. Yeah.
Of course, important statement by Professor Rashid in the studio. I want to turn to Norman, whom we've been discussing environmental impacts as we see them happening, flooding across states of Punjab and Pakistan. I know that it is not just one nation that is feeling the brunt of Mother Nature. I will also try to connect the geopolitics that is involved in this kind of situation. I want to focus with Norman Floyd Barnes. We were talking about China and how they have been planning well ahead of how this war has started with Iran. Chinese refiners have scaled back crude buying from both sanctioned and compliant markets amid elevated oil prices and weak refining economics. The sharp slowdown in Chinese crude imports is now outpacing refinery run cuts. And not only so, the current oil market balance remained tighter than it appears. All of this information is from the website Kepler.com, who is actually doing the monitoring of the crude oil situation from around the world. And amidst this war, the Chinese government and its leader Xi Jinping has moved towards coal-based energy facilities, which is in direct connection with the Paris Agreement that has targeted to phase out coal by 2050 to limit global warming by 1.5 degrees centigrade. So coming to the issue, wars is now another platform where people may look towards an older mechanism like coal, which has a drastic impact in global warming. As per the news, we see that the French President Emmanuel Macron is convening crisis meeting with its ministers as about 300,000 people are displaced and in safety because of wildfires. So I want to ask you, Norman, as I was reading this out, the decision makers must realize that their decisions not only have an impact on human life, but it has an impact on the nature, and it has long-term effects that we'll have to face for decisions we take on this year and this very day. Asking you, Norman, how you feel about this connection that I have just made.
You have summed up what's happening, what I characterize. We are in essence, a crisis mode. There's no plan, so there will be no solution. We'll just muddle along the rest of the year. I can anticipate, unless something drastically changes, and I don't see any indication that's going to happen, crude oil is going to go up to almost $200. It's going to be incredible how this thing is moving to that point. And that's going to basically be the downfall of many countries. They're not going to be able to afford it. Certain regions, South Asia, is not going to be able to afford it. If you don't have your own oil reserves, you're not going to be able to have the means to purchase it. It's going to be very scarce. And the ones that do it, they're going to basically make great profits on it, and they're going to disseminate it at a incredible high cost. And like I said, most countries who do not have a reserve do not have the fundamental and do not have the finance to do that. They are basically struggling to basically do the basic things. And unfortunately, these same countries are hit worse with these natural disasters. They do not have the means to counter respond to these natural events that's happening around the world and continue to evolve. They do not, again, have a plan. The plan was to buy, purchase, and utilize based on how much money I have in my pocket. But that money is now being diverted, has to be diverted to other things. The people need to have resources. The people need to have quality of life issues. When they don't, you have a situation that's like happened with the cockroaches. They will revolt. They will change. So basically, we are in a virtual crisis mode because people needs are not being made, and that is because we, as a human race, we satisfy what we can eat and develop daily. We do not plan for the future, next week, 2 weeks, a year, what's going on. And we do have a tendency to overlook nature and our environment, where we live, what's going on. Certain things occur because of locations we choose to live in. You're in an area where, in the Middle East, where the heat is incredible. It's up to, the other day it got up to almost 50. That is not going to be sustainable if you do not have resources like water. You don't have water, you don't have resources, you don't have things, and these things add up, creates a problem. And then Mother Nature will come in and they will have a heat wave. We will have a hurricane. We will have a flooding. One of the things that flooding occurs when the surface can no longer absorb the water. And that happens when the land is dry. The water will just skim off the top. It will not go down. And that caused mass destruction because people live, the common person live in these hazardous areas and they do not have means to take care of themselves. And now we got this cycle. The government has to respond with resources they don't have. And so the people's needs are not met and they turn into cockroaches, as some people say, and they will revolt. And this is a changing dynamics that we see now, that people are not tolerating this unprofessional, inconsistent, constant behavior. No forecast, know what's going on. That is one of the things that happen in the UK. Things happen all the time. And if you can see it from a street level, why can't our leaders, elected leaders, appointed leaders, see it?
Right. Excellent remarks by Norman Floyd Barnes, why the people can see it, but our elected officials every Sunday to Thursday at 2 p.m. only, and to ignore these problems. As Norman Floyd Barnes was stating regarding Mother Nature's casualties, let me read out before we go on to a short commercial break. A tornado has ripped through parts of eastern Wisconsin yesterday, damaging buildings, leaving thousands without power, as drone footage showed heavily damaged structures, uprooted trees and overturned vehicles in the city of Menasha. So that is just one example. While Europe is seemed to face a lot of wildfires, many that have been evacuated, and more than 75,000 have been told to stay in place. As we understand the nature's calamities, it is time for a short commercial break. Afterwards, once again, today the limelight is China. We will be talking about some military movements that they have been making at the line of actual control here in our region. Do stay tuned for more on this very program. On SATV and SATV Digital. Hello and welcome to International Affairs, and my name is Shamsul Pantho.
I don't see an easy resolution to this because every slight deviation from the plan,
opening an open war conflict with them,
testing nuclear missiles,
Russia's announcement of these supposedly successful testing,
special and exclusive footage that is being played on SATV's screen,
Really coming to terms with Hamas.
Damage estimated between this entire issue.
President Trump is expected to hold bilateral talks,
preserving biodiversity and tackling climate change.
We cannot protect the planet before we negotiate peace.
Where is it going? Is it understanding the needs of its people before the needs of this global world?
For China to come to agreement,
They will face better projects.
with President Xi of China and President Lee of South Korea.
Trump's White House that is in favor of these things.
simply not enough action being taken to address the problem of fossil fuels.
What their plan initially is towards the Caribbean, a place that has been met with two types of disasters.
Bangladeshi students at the same level of opportunity internationally and domestically.
International Affairs. Watch every Sunday to Thursday at 2 p.m. only on SATV and SATV Digital. Hello and welcome to International Affairs, and my name is Shamsul Pantho.
I don't see an easy resolution to this because every slight deviation from the plan,
opening an open war conflict.
Welcoming our viewers back onto the last segment of International Affairs. We were in touch with Washington, D.C. and understanding whatever the geopolitical discussions were regarding visit of foreign delegations towards Lindsey Graham's funeral. But I want to now focus in South Asian geopolitics. We see, and there has been history of border incursions between our neighbor India and our northern neighbor China. There is ambiguity between the two nations. They are definitely progressing in economical fronts when we look at multiple markets. However, one must understand how these two nations are joint. Geographically, it's the Himalayan range that connects the two nations. However, there has been recent strategic developments that are concerning. China has deployed at least 11 of its fifth generation J-20 Mighty Dragon stealth fighters at two strategic air bases facing India's northern frontier, according to recently released commercial satellite imagery. And it has heightened concerns over Beijing's growing air power near the line of actual control. And it is safe to say that Bangladesh is also one of those nations enclaved into the two sides that we see here. I want to ask my panelists here in the studio how you analyze the J-10C fighter jet with India's Rafale fighter jet. People are going to be starting to wonder why this sudden movement by the People's Liberation Air Force has been implemented. Or do they predict there's some kind of tension between the two nations as we see the Middle Eastern issue going on? Will we be seeing some kind of tensions between these two neighbors of Bangladesh? How do you see this recent development?
I think after this Ukraine-Russia war and then US-Iran and Israel war, we no longer afford any more conflict, and the global people are actually fed up with this war and all kind of this military, excursion and military violence all over the world. So I hope that will not escalate into a further conflict between India and China, because I think it might be a regular operation of a defense mechanism. China is actually, in the line of control, they have strengthening their military efficiency and military strengthening. I would expect that that will not turn into a major conflict rather than enforcement. I think unfortunately this kind of war budget has every year has been increased, like China, India, USA is always, like we have heard that US Congress recently given approval of more than $1.5 trillion for the
defense spending bill that has been signed just a week ago.
So this kind, that things happening in case of China as well, and the India as well. Ukraine budget, like European partners given lots of budget to Ukraine from the Russian sovereign wealth that has been that is invested in the European bank. So I think this madness has to be stopped. You need to reduce this war spending for this war industry, rather than you have to invest this for human development. For, like, as you said, we have global is facing lots of economic and climatic catastrophe at the moment. In Africa,
El Nino.
In democratic DRC we have seen huge erupting of the Ebola. So I think the global communities and global citizens need much more investment in human development, not in war spending. So I think this complete madness has to be stopped by the global citizens themselves. They have to elect some sort of credible leadership in the helm of their country's power. You cannot elect the madness again and again and who is violating every international agreed principles and violating even the US Congress, who have the power to who have the control, who should have a control to the US President regarding waging a war again unilaterally. US Congress US President have to take the permission from the US Congress to wage a war. So this constitutional check and balance has to be worked out. Otherwise, we'll see this kind of gullible and madness leadership will control the global situation, global leadership, and that will continuously take us to the civilized forms of world to an uncivilized and a world of complete violence and war, I think. So we should take that control, and the citizen had to create and had to elect a credible leadership who can make the rational decision making for the sake of mankind and for the environmental protection, to control climate change and everything that you said.
Of course, excellent statements coming from Professor Rashid Alam Bhuiya. I thank you, Professor, for your time, patience, and your contributions towards this very program. I also thank Norman Floyd Barnes for providing us the viewpoints, the perspectives, the analysis all the way from Washington, District of Columbia. With that being said, let me also point out the significance of today. It is July the 28th is significant because it is also known as World Hepatitis Day, promotes global awareness and prevention of the viral hepatitis, chosen to honor the birthday of Nobel Prize winner Dr. Baruch Blomberg, who discovered the hepatitis B virus. With that being stated, I am signing off on International Affairs. I hope to be with you all in tomorrow's installation.
America.